Coach will open us up with a statement, then we'll leave it to the questions. Coach.
Good morning. Appreciate, you got that, Keegan got that Indiana stuff going. Appreciate you guys being here. Obviously doesn't feel like baseball season, but 3 weeks from now it will be, whether it's nice out or not. So appreciate you being here. I think big thing, just making sure we get word out there that our first pitch event is coming up Friday. Be a really good opportunity to hear from Josh Harrison, but also see our guys, interact with our guys. I think it's an amazing group of kids. So anybody that hasn't looked into that, if you can be here on Friday evening, anybody that reads your stuff, I think they'll have a great experience. Friday night, there's still some spots available. So just really good opportunity to get face to face with our guys and see what a cool group of kids it is. So. But other than that, we're about a week into practice here, so I don't have tons of answers on too much yet. But biggest change for us is starting this year, we were able to get with our guys more frequently early. For a long time, Division I rules allowed 3 weeks to opening day was when you could start your full practice segment, and this year it started right away when the semester started. So we've been with our guys full time for over a week now, which is helpful. Trying to get a pitching staff ready and in shape and do it safely without full access 3-4 weeks before the season was tough. So that was a great change by the NCAA. They get criticized for a lot. They get this one right. But so it's exciting to have those guys back. It was Thanksgiving to New Year's is weird for us because we don't have our kids around. So it's good to have those guys back. But what can I do?
Coach, I've two questions. The first one's about the schedule. Last year's schedule was loaded. You finished 8th, played everybody above you. This year's not the same thing. You don't have TCU, Arizona, or Arizona State on your schedule. So my question is, do you know your Big 12 opponents before you go out and schedule your out-of-conference games?
In this case, we didn't, and we actually switched one weekend because of that when it came out, trying to make sure we had the right balance. Austin P was a later add to our schedule. They won, I think, 45 games last year, and we knew that would strengthen things a little bit. But I'm always a little cautious, even if I do know the schedule, to put too much stock into it, because when you got the schedule 2 years ago and you saw Cincinnati was on it, you probably thought, it was going to bang up your RPI pretty good, and they'd be a bottom feeder in the Big 12, and here we are, right? So I think our league is so good that you can't put too much stock in, because again, who'd have thought Kansas 3 years ago was going to be a team when that schedule came out that said, man, playing them is going to be great. That was our most valuable wins last year, was Kansas on the road. Who would have thought that 24 months before? So I think it takes care of it a little bit itself in our league, but ultimately it is a little different look without those three programs. But when you look at Jacksonville State with close to 40 wins, Austin P with 40 plus, Auburn in a midweek, there's some meat there, and there's some meat in the league that we don't see right now. Somebody that on paper right now isn't picked real high is going to be awfully tough, and the metrics take care of that too. Ultimately, if our schedule ends up a little bit weaker, we got to win a couple more ball games. If it ends up stronger, the metrics help kind of equalize that schedule piece for us.
The other question is, this is your third season, and do you feel like this is your best team on paper going into this year?
I don't know that answer. I think it is. I think it's our deepest team. I think it's the closest look to what we envisioned wanting to look like here in terms of every spot on the roster, and their abilities. Not so much just are they good at baseball, but the type of player they are, whether it's the athleticism, ability to pound the strike zone, those things that we value. I think hands down, it's a deeper, stronger group that gives itself a chance to be the best team we've had here. There's also 27 freshmen and sophomores, which if you look around the Power Four, I don't think you're going to find anybody else with those numbers. I think we're probably the youngest, if not one of the 2 or 3 youngest in the Power Four, and so there's going to be some learning curve there. But I really like this group in terms of they want to be there every day. We were doing a drill inside the other day, and the energy to it was just incredible. Watching our outfielders do you got outfielders and this new facility is unbelievable for practice purpose, but if you think an outfielder can adequately practice catching a fly ball at an indoor facility, they can't. But those guys they're making each other do push-ups when they don't catch a baseball, and that's on our coaches. That's just the competitiveness. That part is what's exciting to me. Whether that leads to a big pile of wins, I guess we'll find out. But when you talk about best team, I think it's really becoming aligned with what we want it to look like, and that's pretty exciting.
Coach, local recruiting has had its challenges for multiple reasons. How have you been able to leverage your success over the past 2 years to continue to strengthen that area?
Yeah, I think your hope is that kids in the area are getting more exposure to our program than kids out of the area, and your hope is a Jackson Reardon coming from just across the border is following the games closely, and not Jackson himself, but the next Jackson Reardon, 3 or 4 years younger, if they're going to some games, watching it on TV, seeing the win stack, seeing the fun our guys are having. You hope they start to think to themselves, my God, I have no interest in leaving this town. That's great for our community if we can do that. It's great for our program if we can do that. There's always going to be a draw for some kids in this area that it's warmer in the south, and they're gonna get fed a bunch of lines about more scouts and more development and you name it. I don't believe all of that, but I understand there's a league to the south that's pretty attractive to kids. But I think you see it with a Conlon Daniel. He could have gone a lot of places from Wright State, and that process started and ended with Cincinnati, which is just so exciting that this is just where he wanted to be. I think you're going to see more and more of that. I think it's great for our community. Hopefully it gets kids a little more excited about baseball, right? There's a lot of good baseball in the area, and hopefully our product gets kids wanting to do it a little bit more, play a little more, run the bases a little bit more, all that good stuff.
What did you learn about your team, or maybe what it might have lacked at the end of last season, and how did you kind of specifically address that, maybe some players that you brought in?
Yeah, I don't want to talk too much about what we lacked because I think we got a lot done, but I think one thing you 100% saw is as you get deeper into any weekend, in a regional being one of those weekends, we probably were not running out enough quality pitching options that against explosive offenses in June when the ball is flying and carrying at offensive ballparks. Not that we couldn't have won more games in that setting, but we probably weren't putting our kids in a position where they were really, really equipped to have success. And I think we have far more of those options this year, whether it's the growth of some young guys, whether it's some true freshmen that are probably a little more ready than we've had in the past, and whether it's a few good additions in the portal. I think if you said, hey, what's the one thing that's markedly different from your past rosters, it's the number of guys that I would say can be high leverage, high impact guys in terms of their stuff. It doesn't guarantee they're going to get outs, but yeah, it helps.
You mentioned Colin Daniel. Where do you see him fitting in on this ball club this year?
Yeah, Conlon, he's going to run around center field a lot. I'm not sure where he'll hit in the order yet. We got 3 weeks, but there's no reason he couldn't hit it top couple spots in that order. He loves to play. That's what's unbelievable about Conlon. He's in that outfield group that I was just talking about. Like he just loves to show up and play every day, and that's hard to replace. You combine that with some really, really good physical tools. You got a chance to be a really special player for us. I don't want to put too much on Conlon early. He puts a lot of pressure on himself. He has to know that we got a lot of good players, and he doesn't need to be, Superman flying around center field. He just needs to be Conlon. But Conlon's a pretty special kid in terms of both the intangibles and the tangibles. And so I don't know exactly where that fits on an every game basis, but it's a huge piece.
Most people that follow your program know about Jack Natili and Nathan Taylor. Who are some of the younger guys that you've seen the biggest jumps from year one to year two? Yeah,
and that's where we're getting better is who else is on the list, right? We've had plenty of high-level players the last couple of years. You look at last year, Carrington and Landon were two of the very best players in the country and high draft picks. And you've got some of that, high-level exposure guys in Jack and Nate who should get paid a lot of money at the end of this year and are really good college players. But there's another tier of really, really good players, which that part to me is where we're really headed in a good direction. So if you look around the diamond a little bit, I think we've got potentially two really good first base options in Quentin Coates and Ryan Tyransky. Quentin obviously played a lot for us in the postseason and did some good things, but he could be a really impact hitter at this level. Ryan redshirted, but I've talked about him with Tim quite a bit. He's going to help us quite a bit. Over at shortstop, Charlie Niehaus has become he's a really good player, and again, you talk about local kids. There's an example of a guy who 2 years ago was a redshirt here, probably pretty under the radar. Like he's going to be a professional baseball player at some point, and he has become a difference making. You know, I think some people say two-way, but for us, with the way we run the bases, three-way player. He's going to hit, he's going to run, and he's going to defend at a really high level. So that's an exciting one. I think Derek Pitts is one of the most exciting outfielders in the country. Legitimately, he just, the way he plays the outfield is he may be the best defender in the country. And I don't say those things just to say them. So there's a few names there that I think you'll see. Jackson Reardon's done a great job. He's going to see the field as a freshman. Enzo Infelice is a freshman who's going to see the field. Those guys are going to be difference makers in our program. I don't know if that'll be in February of this year or May of their sophomore year, but they're going to be impact guys. So there's a handful of names for you. Cal Sefcik played every day last year. Really good middle of the order bat for us. I'm certainly missing some guys, but on the mound, the transfer Logan Knight from North Dakota State is probably the one that's really jumped out to us as this guy's ready to take the ball on Saturday and give us a chance to win every week. I'm pretty confident saying that. Beat Kansas in a regional last year, so I don't think we should be surprised by it, but he was so good throughout the fall in terms of his consistency. Carson Marsh is going to be really good out of the bullpen. Adam Buchkowski, who we saw a lot in late game situations as a freshman, that experience is going to pay off. He's going to be really tough. Two freshmen on the mound, Connor Blue and Chad Brown, their starting point is just, and this is the same with like Enzo and Jackson Reardon, their starting point as freshmen is so much higher than most of the freshmen we've had the last couple of years, and that's exciting to see where it goes. So I know I threw a lot of names at you, I missed some others, but that's what's fun to me is it's a pretty long list of what we think are pretty exciting players that, not that we didn't have some of those guys in the past, but the ceiling for some of these guys compared to that list in years past is it's continued to get higher.
Jack Natilli, he was tabbed as a PG All-American, a preseason All-American. Have you seen any changes in him, or like how excited are you just to see him perform this season?
Yeah, I think it's just second year in our program. You know, he's a junior, but he played his freshman year at Rutgers, and new program. There's a learning curve there, and I think just being settled into that. And he went out to the Cape in the summer, which is obviously an amazing league, and performed at a really high level. I have no doubt that helps from a confidence standpoint. I think he is pretty settled into knowing he's a high-level player, which is what he should think. But I think it's just continuing to grow. There's not been one switch that's been flipped. It's just continued growth, continued improvement. If you're around Jack, what you'll see is that he just doesn't take a rep off. We have to tell him when to stop doing something because he's not going to tell himself. He'll catch himself, he'll hit himself, he'll lift himself into exhaustion if you give him the opportunity, and that's what's helped him improve so much. But I'm sure there's plenty of other coaches that could sit down and say this, but I don't think there's a catcher in the country we take over Jack at this point. I think he's that good. So it's exciting to have him back there. And now I think the biggest thing we want to see from him is to continue to let those skills turn into leadership qualities. You want your catcher to not be afraid to take command of the field a little bit, and he's getting better and better at that.
Most football programs in the country would say that their goal is to get to a conference championship basketball and make the NCAA tournament. Do you have any firm expectations or goals? I know you have your kind of 10-game mantra, but what?
Yeah, we have firm expectations that are to do the 10-game mantra. Those are very firm. I think with this group, if we stay the course and continue to work to get better every day, there's a lot of luck involved in all of this, right? For every sport, the teams that get in a tournament versus don't, or the teams that win a championship versus don't, the separation is a couple of games, right? And so even though we play more games, 2 games better in the standings last year, and we're pushing to host a regional, 2 games worse, and we might not be playing in a regional. There's some luck involved, but I think if we stay the course with this group of what we lay out there as our expectations, there's a lot of upside to play well into June. I just don't want our guys worrying a whole lot about it because we can't control it. We can control what we do on whatever today is, January 21st. On February 13th, we can control February 13th, but I do think that, yeah, we'd be awfully disappointed if we're not playing in June this year, and we should embrace that. But it's just about get better every day, be the right person every day, love what you're doing every day. Like, show up and be excited to work. Like, don't get so worried about game one that you forget that today should be fun. We have one of the most amazing indoor facilities in the country. We've got a talented group. We've got good coaches around them. When we show up to practice this afternoon, that should be a heck of a that should be a lot of fun. And if it's not because we're worried about wanting to play games, we just kind of wasted a day. And I'm not trying to be too preachy or soapboxy, but geez, we sit and talk about Omaha all day. Why not enjoy Cincinnati today?
As a follow-up to Keegan's question, as you think about the current trajectory of this program, what are the next steps that need to happen to elevate to that next step where you're hosting a regional, making consistent appearances in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, we got to keep doing what we're doing. And I know that's a pretty stock cliche answer, but again, a couple of games separate all of these different tiers. You keep putting quality products on the field that are the right guys that put in the right time. Those boxes will check themselves at some point. And if you have really good, competitive, quality Big 12 teams every single year, and I think our process lends itself to doing that. We're not reliant on one guy or one thing to be successful. I think we're positioned to do that. But if you do that in our league, and I said this 2.5 years ago at my first press conference, if you're really good in the Big 12, you're a national threat. You're a threat to host a regional. You're a threat to go to Omaha. You look at the teams we played and the teams we beat last year, we know we're a real threat to do those things. And so we just got to keep repeating it. We have to keep working our butts off and recruiting the right guys. Hopefully our success helps even elevate that level of student athlete. And then we got to help them develop. We got to help them have fun. We got to stay bought into the team side of things. We do that, eventually those boxes will get checked here. They could get checked this year. They may not get checked this year, but those things will happen if we keep doing it the right way.
You mentioned bringing in the right guys. What does that look like for you as a coach?
To me, the things we like hearing about in the recruiting process from the recruits themselves or the coaches that are around them, the people that are around them, we want guys that want to win. Ultimately, that sounds cliche, but there are guys that maybe just value how much they can play or what's in it for them, and every recruit should have those things in their mind. But we also want to hear that the idea of winning matters to them. And it's not always about how many games you win, but guys that really like winning tend to work harder, tend to be more competitive, tend to be really good teammates. So wanting to win, we want to hear that they love baseball, right? This is a big, big time investment. And so if you're just kind of lukewarm on how much fun you have when you're there, you're going to get tired of it pretty quick. Baseball's got to be kind of your hobby at times. And so those are a couple of big things. And then just some of that upside athleticism. Anybody that's watched us knows the style of baseball we play. If you can run, if you can do some of those things, it allows us to be more flexible, putting in a role to help us. Pitchers that have an aggressive mentality into the zone. Again, those are fairly stock answers, but they're honest answers. But we're starting to also look for guys that want to be Bearcats. I think 2 or 3 years ago, if a guy showed up and said, my dream school is Cincinnati, I'm not being critical of them, but the product we had at that moment probably was not incredibly attractive to somebody that wanted to win a ton of baseball games. And that's not a criticism of anybody or anything. It's just the reality of it, where now we're looking for guys that say, man, this is my dream school, because you can accomplish, to me, everything here that you can accomplish anywhere else in the country. And so, yeah, that if they show up on day one saying there's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be, we're trying to create that for every one of our guys, but the more of them that show up that way, it's obviously a little easier to create it.
You kind of answered it a little bit there, but as you get more talented and more deep, do you maybe play more or less Bischel ball, where you're bunting and stealing?
Good question. I think if I'm any kind of a coach, the players dictate a lot of that. And we may have some lineups this year. I mean, if we've got a lineup with Jack Natilli, Quentin Coates, Enzo Infelice, guys like that are in there, if I'm asking them to bunt for hits, I'm not very good at my job, right? If I'm asking them to look like Landon Vitterick, now a lineup that's got Derek and Conlin and Jackson Smith and Charlie Niehaus and Jackson Reardon and Christian Mitchell, and I can go on with a few more names. Like, boy, if I'm sitting back and just hoping for 3-run homers, I'm probably not doing it right. So I think that's a little dependent on, we want really good baseball players that are good athletes, but what they're really good at, there's just so much that factors into that. Which way is the wind blowing? What's the score of the game? Who's on the mound? But to me, and I don't even know what Bischel ball really means. Hopefully it means we win. But to me, if we want to be really good, you got to be versatile in how you play the game. If you go back to the Knoxville Regional last year, virtually every ball in the air was a threat to leave the yard. Like, you better let guys hit a little bit. You come here in late February, we're gonna have some days that 106-mile-an-hour exits are outs. If we can't put some pressure on with it. But to me, that's what makes that brand of baseball special, is it's pretty versatile. We can pressure you in a lot of ways, whether it's the bunting, the base running, the hitting approach, getting some free passes. But I think lost in all that is we can hit it over the fence a little bit too. You know, you look at the Kansas series last year, you look at the regional, look at the first game against Wake Forest. The bunt hit was big, but we had some guys bashing the ball out of the park too. And that versatility matters. I think if I do my job well, it should change game to game, not just this is what we're going to do or not going to do.
One other question about your schedule. You've got 3 staples on your schedule that are here local, Xavier, Miami, and Wright State. And they're all in leagues that maybe don't help you a whole lot, but they are all well-coached and competitive programs. So is it like a two-edged sword that, you know, you're expected to sort of beat those guys, but they're going to push you every game?
Yeah, I cannot. I actually have a group text with some of those coaches because we have things like the Nux Hall in place. But when you talk about within an hour of here, Xavier, Wright State, Miami, Ohio, and Northern Kentucky gets left out a little, but they've won a lot of games. I mean, that's a lot of really good Division I baseball in a pretty small, and they may not get the national news, but obviously Xavier plays anybody and everybody in the country and wins their fair share of them. Miami's in the NCAA tournament last year. Wright State's in the NCAA tournament virtually every year. They're really good, and actually for us, from a scheduling standpoint, it's actually, I think, a pretty big advantage to us because outsiders may expect us to beat them every single time. We're not going to. They're just good enough that they're going to do something. And obviously, they're going to circle us on the schedule, and we want to beat those teams. But if we happen to lose, it's not going to kill us because they're going to have 35 wins. They're going to have competitive RPIs. Road games are really valuable in the metrics. We can get on a bus and go less than an hour down the road and play really good teams. That, quite frankly, a road win at a Xavier, a Wright State, of Miami are pretty good from a metric standpoint. But I think more than the NCAA tournament and all, it's just pretty cool that in this little small area you've got 4 teams that right now are all talking about wanting to play into June, and they can be really realistic about that expectation. That's pretty neat. That's a huge credit to all those coaches, all those programs, baseball in the area, all those. I mean, I don't know how many areas you're going to find. You know, you might find some in Texas, Florida, or California, wherever, but how many places in the North have 4 teams that when they show up, you know, the first game, that the realistic goal is to play into June and win a championship. That's a pretty neat setup right now.
Guys all set? Coach, thank you.
Appreciate you guys being here. If I can ever do anything, just holler.